Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking into something quite complex, maybe even uncomfortable. It's about that duality. The hugely celebrated career of Rolf Harris, the Australian entertainer.
Right. Decades of fame.
And then its complete catastrophic collapse, legally and culturally. So our mission today is really to dive into the source material we have.
Yeah, tracing that phenomenal rise, artist, musician, TV star.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right up until his public identity was just systematically taken apart after his conviction for, well, historical sexual offenses.
It's probably one of the most extreme examples you could find of a public identity just fracturing like that.
Totally fractured.
I mean, for decades, he was known everywhere. An acclaimed artist, commissioned to paint the Queen.
Incredible.
A musician with #1 hits, a fixture on children's TV, a trusted figure. But we have to balance that persona, that image, with the facts that came out in court. The sources lay it out clearly. Born 1930, Bassendean, Western Australia. A real multi-talent. Popularized the didgeridoo, the stylophone. And he's credited with inventing the wobble board, too. That unique sound.
That's the foundation, isn't it? The legend we all sort of knew.
Yes.
But that whole story, that entire perception, it just pivots so abruptly on one single devastating fact. The sources really make it clear there's a before and an after.
And that line is drawn by a court finding.
Yeah.
The absolute pivot point is that 2014 conviction in England. Harris was found guilty of sexual assault against 4 underage girls.
And these weren't recent events.
No. Crimes spanning a long time, the 60s through to the 80s. And that conviction, it wasn't just the end of his career.
It triggered everything else.
Exactly. It started this huge effort, which is really well documented in our sources, to basically erase his place in history.
So to really get the scale of the fall, we first need to understand the height he reached, right?
Precisely. And we need to stick strictly to the facts, the chronological and biographical story laid out in the materials we have in front of us.
Okay, let's unpack that rise then. Because the sources paint him as, well, almost a Renaissance man from the very beginning. It's kind of hard to believe one person was a champion athlete and a recognized artist by 16.
It's quite remarkable.
Was that duality sort of central to his early image?
Absolutely. The materials show this.
Yeah.
This split in his talents right from the start. It reflects maybe a deep discipline in completely different areas. He's the boy from Bassendean, grew up in Perth. His name, Rolf, even came from Rolf Boldrewood, the Australian writer.
Right.
But his achievements went way beyond local pretty quickly, national, even international, while he was still just a teenager.
The sources really emphasize his swimming. This wasn't just a hobby, was it?
No, far from it. It suggests a real physical discipline, maybe mirroring his artistic side. In 1946, he was the Australian junior 110 yards backstroke champion.
Well.
And then locally, between 48 and 52, Western Australian state champion in different strokes, different distances. That's a serious level of commitment, requires huge amounts of training.
And somehow, he's balancing that tough training schedule with serious art.
You mentioned the Archibald Prize acceptance incredibly young. For listeners maybe not familiar with Australian culture, why is that such a big deal?
The Archibald is, well, it's huge in Australia, one of the most prestigious art prizes, especially for portraiture. It's a major cultural moment each year.
Okay.
So what's astonishing is that in 1947, he's just 16, still at school, Perth Modern School, and his self-portrait in oils gets accepted. One of only 80 works shown at the Art Gallery of New South Wales.
At 16?
It's not just beginner's luck. It shows real technical skill, acceptance by the art establishment before he's even out of his teens.
Incredible.
A year later, he's painting the lieutenant governor for the same prize. Then in 49, he wins the Claude Hotchin Prize for oil colors. A landscape this time. So you've got champion swimmer, recognized artist, and he's already showing musical talent too. A standout.
So 1952, he's 22. He heads to England, initially focusing on art school, right?
City and guilds in London.
So the plan, yeah.
But London must have cottoned on pretty quickly that his performance side was just as strong.
London was the perfect place to blend those skills. By the mid-50s, he's already getting regular work on early BBC children's TV.
Using his art skills.
Exactly. He used that rapid drawing ability for regular spots on shows like Jigsaw and Whirligig. That's where he really honed the performance side of his art.
Creating characters live on screen.
Yeah, characters like Willoughby, he'd draw him live, then dramatically erase him at the end. Pure performance art, really. He even did Oliver Polyp the Octopus, drawing and animating on the back of his own hand for an ITV show called Small Time.
He was basically innovating TV performance on the fly with just a board and chalk.
Pretty much.
But while the art was getting him noticed, the music, which he was working on in the evenings, that's what brought the global fame, wasn't it?
That's right. The sources mention he played regularly at a place called the Down Under Club, Thursday nights.
For the expats.
Yeah, playing piano accordion for the Australian and New Zealand crowd. It was that regular, intimate gigging environment where he developed the banter, the jokes, and eventually the structure for his first massive hit.
Tie Me Kangaroo Down, Sport.
The very one.
And the sources say when he finally recorded it back in Australia, it was incredibly basic.
Very low budget. It was 1959. He was back in Perth working on a TV show, Spotlight, at the new local station, TBW7.
Right.
He literally recorded Tie Me Kangaroo Down, Sport, right there in the TV studio. Just one microphone, carefully placed.
Amazing.
Despite that minimal setup, the single just took off. Immediate, huge success. First #1 in Australia and the UK. It did well in the US later, too.
And this is where that story comes in, the one in the source material about the backing musicians making a staggering financial mistake.
Oh, yeah. He offered the 4 guys playing with him a piece of the action. 10% of the royalties.
A potential fortune?
Potential, yes.
Yeah.
A long-term share. But the sources say these local musicians just didn't believe in the song, thought it was just a novelty thing.
So they took cash instead.
They took a one-off payment. £7 each.
£7.
Which, even adjusted for inflation is maybe a $230 or so today. Considering the decades of airplay re-releases worldwide, it's an unbelievable amount of money they walked away from.
It really shows how unexpected that massive success was, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Nobody saw it coming.
And beyond the catchy tune, that song introduced the world to one of his signature things, the wobble board. Tell us a bit more about that invention. It's so distinctive.
The wobble board is key to his early sound, definitely. It's basically just a piece of hardboard, could be plywood, could be masonite.
Right.
You hold it at both ends and you shake it, wobble it quickly. It makes this rhythmic, percussive sound, sort of like scraping and shaking combined.
And he invented it.
He's credited with inventing it, yeah. And that unique sound, plus the didgeridoo later on, became his calling card, musically.
Now, we do need to touch on the controversy with that original song. The sources mention it. There was a racial slur in the early version.
There was, yes. The original 4th verse of Tie Me Kangaroo Down, Sport had the line, "Let me a bass, go loose, Lou," using that derogatory term for Aboriginal Australians. The sources confirm Harris later said he deeply regretted using that lyric. It was eventually removed from later recordings and performances as times changed and awareness grew.
That's another layer, isn't it? Shows that even his huge breakthrough hit had elements that were, by later standards, pretty problematic.
It definitely complicates the picture of his long career right from the start.
So that massive, unexpected hit sets the stage. But let's talk about the move to global superstar status when he came back to the UK for good in 1962. He didn't stay a novelty act for long.
No, he quickly moved into high-end collaborations. George Martin, the Beatles' legendary producer, took him on, re-recorded his big hits. That secured the massive U.S. success for the Kangaroo song, and Sunrise went to #2 in the UK charts.
And the Beatles connection went further than just the studio, didn't it?
Much further. He actually compared their big 16-night Christmas show in 1963.
That's just staggering to think about. The Beatles at their absolute peak, and he's the MC.
It really validated his huge appeal to the masses. He wasn't just an opening act, he was the host, connecting with all kinds of audiences.
Linking different generations, maybe?
Exactly. The sources even confirm he performed a specially written version of Tie Me Kangaroo Down, Sport, with the Beatles for a BBC radio show. He became this established figure who could bridge that gap between traditional entertainment and the new rock and roll explosion.
But maybe the thing that lasted longest in people's minds, outside of the later court case, obviously, was the art he did on TV and that catchphrase.
Can you tell what it is yet?
Everyone knew it.
It's burned into the cultural memory of millions, especially across the Commonwealth. It was his trademark move, wasn't it? Painting really fast on those big boards.
Came chaotic.
Looked chaotic, abstract even, and then bam, he'd flip the board 90 or 180 degrees and suddenly reveal the finished picture, often something quite beautiful.
And that quick draw art thing, it wasn't just a gimmick. It was the core of decades of really popular TV shows.
Oh yeah, it fueled a whole string of successes. The Rolf Harris show ran from 67 to 74. Then kids shows like Rolf's Cartoon Time, Rolf's Cartoon Club. But if you really want to understand how much the public trusted him, you have to look at his later big show, Animal Hospital.
Ah, yes, Animal Hospital ran from 94 to 2003. Hugely popular. It really cemented that image of him as this kind, caring person.
Exactly. The show followed vets treating sick and injured animals, and Harris was the host, positioned as this warm, compassionate, sort of avuncular figure.
Almost like everyone's favorite uncle.
Sort of, yeah. And the sources confirm how popular it was. Won most popular factual entertainment show 5 times at the National TV Awards.
5 times.
So his public persona during that period was absolutely synonymous with kindness, empathy, trustworthiness, which is, of course, the complete opposite of the crimes he was later convicted of committing during those same decades.
And meanwhile, his music career hit another peak, a very emotional one, with his biggest ever hit single, Two Little Boys.
That song was massive. Christmas number 1 in 1969 stayed there for 6 weeks, sold over 1 million copies.
Wow.
And the sources reveal this personal connection he only discovered much later. The song's story about 2 boys playing on toy horses.
Yes.
It mirrored the actual World War I experience of his own father, Crom, and his uncle Carl. Carl was badly wounded in France and died young at 19. Finding that out must have added this incredible layer of meaning to his biggest hit, looking back.
And he kept experimenting with music, didn't he? He didn't just play instruments, he properly learned them, even incorporating indigenous Australian culture.
He did. He learned the didgeridoo from the Aboriginal Australian master David Blanasi back in 1967.
Right.
And he brought that sound into his pop performances, alongside the stylophone, that funny little electronic keyboard.
Yeah, I remember those.
And that willingness to try different sounds led to that surprising late career comeback in the rock world.
The cover of Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. That must have blown people's minds in 1993. Didgeridoo, wobble board, and it hit the UK top 10.
It was a genuine shock to the system culturally. Here's this 63-year-old guy, known for novelty songs, taking on one of the most sacred rock anthems ever.
And making it a hit again.
Exactly. And that led directly to him playing Glastonbury.
The big festival.
Yeah, the huge contemporary music festival. He ended up playing there 7 times, which just shows his amazing ability to stay relevant, stay loved across different generations and music tastes.
He did other covers too, didn't he?
He did Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, and apparently for an Australian radio challenge, he did the divinal song I Touch Myself, using only a wobble board.
Just the wobble board.
Yeah,
Wow.
like something.
And he kept that high standing in the proper art world too. He wasn't just seen as a TV guy who could draw a bit.
No, he was recognized in serious art circles. His TV series Rolf on Art in 2001 and 2004 showed he really knew his stuff about artists like Van Gogh, Monet.
Right.
And to really cement that, he got an exhibition at London's National Gallery in 2002.
The National Gallery? That's huge for any artist, let alone an entertainer.
It's extremely rare. It showed a massive level of institutional respect.
And then came the absolute peak of that establishment acceptance in 2005.
The Royal Commission, being asked to paint the official portrait of Queen Elizabeth II for her 80th birthday.
It doesn't get much bigger than that in the Commonwealth.
Absolutely not. It's the ultimate artistic validation, really. The portrait was unveiled at Buckingham Palace. It was really well received. Later on, the British public voted it their second favorite portrait of the Queen.
So he'd reached the absolute pinnacle of artistic and social acceptance. This incredible level of trust from the establishment.
A level few performers ever achieve.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the starkest irony of this whole story. His public life and his private crimes. The sources show they directly intersected in the most chilling way imaginable.
It is the absolute core contradiction, isn't it?
Right.
While he's building this huge platform of trust and warmth, painting the Queen, hosting Animal Hospital, the crimes he was eventually convicted for were happening during much of that same time. But the thing that's really, really hard to get your head around is that child abuse prevention video he presented in 1985.
The one called Kids Can Say No.
That's the one. A 20-minute film specifically made to teach young children 5 to 8 years old.
So young.
How to spot dangerous situations, how to avoid or escape sexual abuse, and where to get help. And Rolf Harris, this figure of ultimate trust, was the presenter.
While, as the sources show, his own offenses covered the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Exactly. He was presenting a video designed to protect children from the very kinds of acts he himself was committing.
The level of compartmentalization, deception, it's almost impossible to fathom.
It really is. Actively instructing children how to stay safe from dangers that he himself represented.
It just shows that complete split, doesn't it? Between the carefully crafted, kind public persona and the hidden reality.
The depth of deception needed to do that, to present that video while engaging in those acts. It really highlights what we learned from this whole case study. Just how impenetrable his public image was, masking such a fundamental betrayal of trust.
And that leads us straight into the collapse. Abrupt, total. Starting with Operation Yewtree. He was arrested in 2013, this figure who'd been in institution for over 50 years.
Arrested in March 2013. Now, Operation Yewtree was that big police investigation into historical sex offenses, sparked largely by the Jimmy Savile revelations.
Right.
But the sources are very clear that the allegations against Harris weren't initially linked to Savile. Though, obviously, the climate Yewtree created likely encouraged victims to come forward.
And Harris denied it all at first.
Predictably, yes, denied any wrongdoing when he was arrested.
But the charges came fairly quickly, outlining the sheer timescale of the alleged abuse.
By August 2013, he was charged with 13 offenses, 9 counts of indecent assault, 4 of making indecent child images. Then later that year, another 3 counts of sexual assault were added.
Covering decades.
Decades. From the 1960s right through to the 1980s, victims aged between 8 and 19. He pleaded not guilty to everything in January 2014. The stage was set for a very high-profile trial.
We should just quickly clarify that point from the sources about the indecent images charges, because those 4 were eventually dropped, weren't they?
Yes, that's an important legal detail. Those charges were successfully separated from the main trial.
Why would that?
It came down to the wording of the Protection of Children Act 1978 at the time. The interpretation was that just viewing certain images on a computer counted legally as making them.
Okay.
But Harris's legal team managed to get identity documents proving the models in the images were actually adults over 18.
Ah, I see.
That proof undermined the basis for those specific charges, so the prosecution dropped them. It shows the legal complexities involved.
So when the main trial started in 2014, the specific allegations laid bare the extent of the abuse, different times, different places.
They really did. The victims weren't all from one place or background. One key allegation involved assaulting a 14-year-old girl at a celebrity. It's a knockout event in Cambridge back in 1975.
Right.
Another charged him with assaulting an 8-year-old girl who just asked for his autograph at a community center in Portsmouth around 68 or 69.
8 years old.
It showed a pattern, didn't it? Not isolated incidents, but behavior repeated over many years, often using the access his fame gave him.
And his defense, during the trial, it seemed to run into trouble with basic facts, like where he actually was at certain times.
That was a really damaging moment for the defense. They initially claimed he couldn't remember being in Cambridge around the time of that. It's a knockout event in the mid-70s.
A memory lapse defense.
Sort of a general lapse of memory claim, but it kind of unraveled when the prosecution produced TV archive footage.
Actual video.
Yeah, footage from an ITV show called Star Games, proving he was in Cambridge in 1978 for that show. He tried to brush it off as just a memory slip, but that contradiction definitely hurt his credibility.
And the sources mention a letter he wrote years before was used in court, trying to downplay one relationship.
Yes, a letter he wrote in 1997. It was about his relationship with his daughter's friend, a relationship that started when she was 13 and continued until she was 19.
And what did the letter say?
He wrote that the relationship had progressed from a feeling of love and friendship. There was no rape, no physical forcing, brutality, or beating that took place. The defense tried to use it to suggest things were consensual or at least not violent.
But it didn't convince the jury on the indecent assault charges.
Ultimately, no, it didn't sway them.
And despite all the defense arguments, the jury's verdict was clear.
Very clear. On June 30th, 2014, Rolf Harris was found guilty on all 12 counts of indecent assault. Sentencing happened just a few days later, 5 years and 9 months.
Served in various prisons, like Stafford.
Among others, yes. HM Prison Stafford was one.
And the judge's comments at sentencing were pretty brutal, weren't they? Especially about remorse.
Mr. Justice Sweeney didn't mince words. He told Harris directly, "You have shown no remorse for your crimes at all."
Stark.
He went on. "Your reputation now lies in ruins. You have been stripped of your honors, but you have no one to blame but yourself." It's worth noting, though, the sentence length itself was limited by the laws in place when the crimes actually happened.
Ah, so the maximum penalty was lower back then.
Exactly. That's why, despite some public feeling it was too lenient, the Attorney General later decided not to review the sentence. The judge had likely given close to the maximum possible under the old laws.
Even after conviction, his own actions from prison caused more controversy. The sources talk about a letter accusing him of victim blaming.
That happened in 2015. A letter he wrote from prison got published. It apparently contained these really abusive, insulting song lyrics aimed squarely at his female accusers. The victim's lawyer jumped on it, called it blatant victim blaming, argued it showed he had zero remorse, total contempt, and it should be considered if he ever came up for parole. It just kept him in the public eye as this unrepentant figure, even behind bars.
And the legal battles weren't even finished then, were they? More charges, retrials.
No, it dragged on. In February 2016, the CPS brought 7 more charges. He pleaded not guilty again.
What happened with those?
After a trial, he was actually acquitted on 3 of them, but the jury couldn't decide on the others. So a retrial was ordered for the remaining 3 charges.
And the retrial.
That also failed to reach a verdict. The jury was hung again. At that point, considering the time and resources already spent, the prosecution decided not to go for a 3rd trial on those counts.
But amid all that legal back and forth, one of his original convictions from 2014 was overturned, right?
That's correct. In November 2017, the conviction relating to the indecent assault of that 8-year-old girl in Portsmouth, the one seeking an autograph, that conviction was overturned by the Court of Appeal. They ruled it unsafe.
Unsafe. What about the others?
The court looked at applications to challenge the other 11 convictions from the 2014 trial, but they dismissed those. So those 11 original guilty verdicts stood firm.
And he was released not long after that.
Released on license in 2017, having served nearly 3 years of his sentence.
So the final part of this deep dive has to be that systematic tearing down of his public identity. The institutions that showered him with honors spent years taking them all back. It wasn't just a career ending, it felt like an annulment of a person's history.
The sources show it was a total revocation, across the board, multiple levels, 2 different countries. In Britain, they took back his honors systematically, starting from the bottom up.
MBE, OBE, CBE.
Exactly. His MBE from 68, the OBE from 77, the CBE from 2006, all revoked in March 2015. That progression member, officer commander, it shows how high he'd climbed in the establishment's eyes and how completely that was undone.
And Australia did the same with their honors.
They did. His Member of the Order of Australia, AM, from 89, and significantly, his Officer of the Order of Australia, AO, from 2012, both rescinded in February 2015.
The AO is a very high honor, isn't it?
Very high. Recognition for outstanding achievement and service. Taking that back was a clear signal the Australian government was totally disowning his legacy.
But it wasn't just governments. His own artistic and professional communities cut ties too, didn't they? Stripping away industry awards.
Completely. ARIA, the Australian Recording Industry Association, kicked him out of their Hall of Fame. He'd been inducted in 2008.
That's his peers rejecting him.
Absolutely. The entire Australian music industry basically saying, you don't belong here anymore. He was also dropped from the National Trust's list of Australian National Living Treasures, a title he'd held since '97, kicked out of the cultural canon, essentially.
And what about that BAFTA fellowship? That was awarded relatively recently, before the fall, wasn't it?
2012, yeah. The BAFTA Fellowship is their highest honor for a lifetime of incredible creative work. They annulled it.
Annulled. Strong word.
It is. It's arguably the most dramatic professional rejection. The film and TV industry completely repudiating his entire contribution after the conviction. Even his academic honors went. 2 honorary doctorates from universities were rescinded. Institution after institution just cut him off.
The sources even mention physical and digital erasing attempts.
Yeah, down to quite specific things. In Kununurra, Western Australia, there's a celebrity tree park. The plaque for the tree he planted was stolen in 2014.
Vandalism.
Seems so. The council debated replacing it, but ongoing vandalism kind of confirmed public feeling, so they decided against it. And digitally, the sources say his old performances with the Wiggles.
Children's group.
Yeah, the hugely popular Australian kids group. After his conviction, they digitally removed him from their DVD releases, making sure his image wasn't associated with current children's entertainment. A conscious effort to erase him.
Finally, let's touch on the reports of his last years. His health declined significantly after prison, didn't it?
The materials suggest a serious decline, yes. He was reportedly hospitalized in 2016, maybe with sepsis. By 2022, the reports were quite grim, suffering badly from neck cancer.
Couldn't speak.
Apparently left him mostly unable to speak, needing 24-hour care, even tube feeding. He passed away at his home in Bray, Berkshire on May 10th, 2023. He was 93.
And the cause of death?
The death certificate listed neck cancer and just frailty of old age.
And we should also note his wife passed away very recently, too.
Yes, Alwyn Hughes, a Welsh sculptor and jeweler he married way back in 1958. She died just in August 2024, aged 92.
So looking back over all of this, everything we've covered today from the source material, the main thing that stands out is just the sheer scale of the identity that was built and then utterly destroyed.
It really is a documented case study of, well, total public identity collapse, possibly one of the most extreme examples you could find.
Yeah.
Here's this figure who wasn't just famous, he was culturally embedded. Global #1 hits, invented instruments, painted the actual head of state, hosted beloved family TV shows for 50 years.
Unbelievable career.
And all of it effectively invalidated after the fact, systematically erased once those historical crimes were confirmed in court. It just hammers home how irreversible that kind of fundamental breach of public trust is.
The complexity of it really stays with you. The sheer breadth of the career that was lost, from covering Led Zeppelin and inventing the wobble board, right up to the immense honor of painting the Queen, it's hard to really process.
It is.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? How fragile celebrity can be when private actions completely undermine the public face.
It's certainly a complex story, and as you process all the material we've gone through today, especially that one deeply disturbing detail, it does leave you with a final, quite provocative thought to consider. The source material clearly states Harris presented that child abuse prevention video, Kids Can Say No, back in 1985. Now, given we know the timeline of his offenses stretched from the 60s through the 80s...
Right into that period.
Exactly. You have to ask yourself, what does this reveal about the nature of his public performance? What level of psychological split or deception or compartmentalization does it take for someone to actively teach children how to avoid the very thing they themselves are doing?
That disconnect.
That's the ultimate question here, isn't it? The question of performance versus reality that just defines this entire difficult biography.
A very profound and necessary thought to end on. Thank you for navigating us through this really challenging deep dive into the source material.